How is it that this guy from a small town in Canada started managing multi-million-dollar properties with no experience and no money, and then made $100,000 in a single month from just one of these properties less than 2 years later? Most people would assume that to buy a property like this, you'd need at least a few $100,000, right? And to make $100,000 in 1 month, this property would need to be making over $3,000 per day. And if you think that's impossible, you'd be right. Sort of. But there's actually another way. You see, this property is managed by a guy named Brendon McNaughton. And having personally worked with more than 700 Airbnb managers, I was blown away when Brendon showed me these numbers. So I gave Brendon a call and uncovered some shocking secrets to his success. Brendon did a few things with this business that were really smart, and that's what allowed him to accomplish the nearly impossible. Now, to understand how Brendon started with no money and no experience, then made over $100,000 with a single listing less than 2 years later, there are 4 parts that you need to understand. Each piece will give you the key to understanding the next. And ultimately, you'll discover that almost anyone can make a full-time income managing other people's properties on Airbnb. I first met Brendon about 2 years ago when he joined my coaching program, B&B Mastery Program. At that time, Brendon was just getting started with Airbnb. Fast forward to last week, and he's still jumping on our weekly coaching calls, except now he's sharing results like this.
July, I have 50% occupancy of like advanced bookings and $50,000 booked in. So I'm on pace to $100,000 a month in July, 1 month on their property.
And that's just from one property. We'll get back to those numbers in a minute. But first, we need to talk about how Brendon even started managing this property in the first place. Because as you can imagine, places like this are not cheap. So buying the place is out of the question if you're starting without a whole bunch of money. What you can do, however, is offer to manage a property like this for the owner in exchange for a cut of the revenue. And that's the first brilliant and completely risk-free thing that Brendon did. He used a strategy called co-hosting. It allowed him to manage a property like this without waiting years to save up and buy the place. And although it sounds simple, the approach he used was actually pretty genius. When most people try to start a new business, they have absolutely no idea where to find clients. And even if they do, they don't know how to actually reach out to them. So instead of making money right away, most people fumble around for the first few months and make no progress. But instead of fumbling around, Brendon reached out and got help. My team and I were able to help him find a location that was ripe with opportunity. This was an area where properties were making big money on Airbnb, but there were almost no competing co-hosting companies. He started talking to property owners, and at first, a few people turned him down, but he knew that if he stayed persistent, results would come. And after a few weeks, that's exactly what happened. People started saying yes and agreeing to hand over their properties. This meant that Brendon would now get 20% of every single dollar that these properties earned. Now, if you want to work with me the same way Brendon did, then it all starts with one simple step. In the description below this video, you'll see a link for a free training on how to manage other people's properties on Airbnb. That's exactly where Brendon first got started, and that led him to where he is today. So click the link, sign up for the training, and if you're serious, you can choose to work hands-on with me and my team. We'll help you build a co-hosting business just like Brendon's. So if you want to get started, just click the link in the description below. Now, those first few properties ended up making about $8,000 a month each, and that meant about $1,600 a month in management fees. That's pretty good, but still a far cry from $100,000 a month with one single listing. And that's where the 80-20 rule came into play. Over the next few months, Brendon continued to build up his portfolio. Within a year, he was managing over 10 properties. Some properties were bigger than the first one, and some were smaller. But what started to become obvious was that about 80% of his profits were coming from just 20% of his listings. You see, he was managing a few really nice, really big properties. Properties where the owners had really made an effort to set the listings up for success. And a few of those listings were doing so well that Brendon was making more money from them than all the others. And not only that, but because these listings were doing so well, they were also the easiest to manage. Brendon was making great money, the property owners were making great money, and guests were having incredible holidays. Everyone was happy. After noticing this, the next step was to go all in on those types of listings. The business was at a point where now property owners were coming to him and asking him for help. So Brendon decided to start screening more diligently. He essentially upped the bar for the caliber of property that he'd allow into his business. And that's when he brought on this listing. An absolutely gorgeous 6-bedroom, 5.5 bathroom riverfront cottage. Now, it's pretty easy to see that this property is set up for success. It's a beautiful cottage with great design, lots of great amenities, and it's in a great location. But that's not enough to get this property to $100,000 in a single month. Not even close. To get to $100,000 a month, Brendon had to deploy his fourth genius strategy, customer obsession. Focusing on a small number of amazing properties meant that each listing got individual attention. They absolutely nailed everything from the photography to the marketing to the pricing, and the results speak for themselves. This amazing listing shot up to one of the top search results on Airbnb. They dialed in the pricing and were able to charge as much as $2,000 to $3,000 a night. And that brings us to July of 2024. This listing happens to be in a pretty seasonal market, so a lot of the money it makes comes in during the summer months. So leading up to the summer, they took the time to really perfect every single detail, and it paid off big time. In July of 2024, this listing is on pace to generate over $100,000 in total bookings, meaning that the owners will make a cool 80 grand and Brendon will walk away with about $20,000 in management fees from one listing in 1 month without owning the property. And his whole journey started just over 2 years ago when he clicked the link in the description down below. So click the link, check out the free training, and let's get started building the business of your dreams. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.